midnight, the fog drifts in like a slow animal, smelling of seaweed and rain and old metal. I park by the keeper's house with the taste of coffee that never tastes right anymore on my tongue. The tower looms above the rocks, a bristling silhouette against a gray sea. A light should be an answer, I've always thought. Tonight I am answering nothing at all, but I am answering anyway. Myra steps out from the doorway to the tower path, her boots skimming the gravel, a thermos in one hand, and a look that asks for nothing and everything at once. Back for one more night, she asks, voice low as the foghorn in the distance. For a final night, I say, which sounds braver than I feel. The door to the tower creaks open like a tired mouth. The staircase exhales a long, iron sigh as I climb, each rung a memory I've carried up here in the quiet spaces of my chest. The lantern lights with a familiar, stubborn glow and hums its old song, a lifeline of heat and glass. The air inside is sharp with old oil and salt, and the stubborn scent of a life I still haven't learned to rename. I used to measure a good night by how many ships stayed in their lanes. Tonight I measure by how many memories stay inside me when I blink. The fog presses at the small windows. The sea sounds like a creature breathing in the dark. Before this night, I believed that worth lived in the steadiness of a routine. You rise, you tend the flame, you leave a little piece of your own fear at the door so the world doesn't see it. My wife June would say, with a sly smile, that I was all logbook and no heart. I kept it that way, methodical, practical, dependable, because emotions felt like storms I couldn't weather without a plan. People called me reliable. I called myself a good man. The lighthouse's beam was proof I existed for others, not for myself. But the night and the fog do their work anyway. The lantern's glow slides along the brick and across the ceiling where a shelf holds a cracked photograph of June and me from a summer long gone. The kind sunlight only pretends to remember. A box of old signals faded cards, a bottle of lantern oil with a label half peeled offsets next to a stack of logbooks I could recite in my sleep. Myra's voice comes to me through the wall. A soft knock, a question, a promise of tea that's never hot enough. The first hour passes with the ordinary sounds, the sea's anger in the distance, the wind's sly rumor around the corners, the creaks of a tower that has watched thousands of nights slip into quiet. Then the fog thickens, a damp wool blanket pressed tight against the world. A ship out there unknown, unnamed drifts, then fights to hold course. The radio crackles in little shivers. A captain's steady voice, a second voice with fear behind it, the syllables swallowed by the fog. Dinosaurs enter my night in the form of old choices I thought I'd buried with my years. A younger me would have left the lighthouse behind in a single, decisive breath for a different liphone with a name and a face that wasn't the seas. June had asked me not to go once, twice, 100 times, and I kept my hands on the lantern and my heart on the logbook. The daughter we never named, the life we almost built, the letters I never mailed. These things are the fossils in my attic, poked at by the cold wind and the flood of memory. 100 tiny regrets stalk the stairwell with me as I ascend, and I listen to Myra's kettle hiss downstairs as if it were a distant storm one more time. The lantern's beam stirs the air, and with it come images that errant mine to own it somehow now seem to own me. A night on the bluff, a young captain with steel in his jaw, email spark lips that promised a future I would never claim. June's voice in the kitchen, weathered by time but clear as glass, asking me to stay, to tell her I love her, to listen as the kettle sang its old tune. A child's small fingerprint on the windowsill, smudged with the same stubborn salt as the sea, and a sound I thought I'd buried, the soft, certain whisper of a letter I never found courage to write. The fog hisses. The lights from Myra's cottage on shore glow faintly through the glass like a memory trying to reach me. Then the lamp's glow widens, painting the walls with the long, patient arc of the beam. And in that painted air I feel, not think, a truth assembling itself with the quiet inevitability of tide and rock. The 5-second moment arrives without fanfare, like the moment a door stops swinging and chooses a side. I am turning the lens a touch, letting it breatheth room, is suddenly full of more than shelves and oil and salt. On the glass, not reflected, but shown me own life in the quiet theater of light. June's face not as she looked when she slept beside me, but as she would have looked if I'd ever believed she deserved a life free of my storms. The younger me appears again in an imagined scene, me back then, telling June I'd stay, and her smile slipping away as the ship's beacon of hope on the horizon dims in my mind's corner. A ghost of the Captain Arlo Reed speaks across the static, thanking me for the rescue I didn't realize I'd made possible by standing still when I should have moved. A fluttering, half-forgotten memory of a daughter who could have called this lighthouse a home if I hadn't believed the worth of a life was measured by how many ships I saved. And then, without warning, the truth lands in my chest with the stubborn weight of gravity and wind. I am not the iron keep of a flame for others to find their way by. I am the flame itself. The life I've saved has nothing to do with the maps I've kept and the engines I've tended. It's the way I've learned to survive, to forgive or not to forgive, to live as though the world owed me because I stood in its way, or to recognize that the world owed me nothing, and that's exactly why I am still here, keeping the last lantern lit for those who need a path through the fog. The lens reveals this, and the fog listens, and the sea seems to lean in closer to hear me tell the truth I've been rehearsing for years. I stand there with my hands on the brass, the gray air pressing in, and June's eyes inside the glass knot as a ghost, but as a mirror. Myra's kettle finally sings, and the tower breathes with me, not against me. The fog and the lamp and my hands and the memory all align into a single, quiet conclusion. I've never allowed myself to admit in a language I trusted more than I trusted myself. I am ready to become the light I've carried in silence, the kind that doesn't demand a storm to prove its worth, the kind that can be still and steady even when the sea is at war with itself. The moment closes on a breath, and the breath lingers. The lantern's glow steadies, and I feel the old tremor in my hands ease into something almost soft, almost human. The final flicker of the beam falls everywhere at once, and I know the meaning I could never name before. I am the beacon I've searched for in the dark, and I won't leave June or the memory of our child or the ship that taught me what responsibility tastes like to fester in a container called forgiveness. I am the light. I am the keeper. I am done running. The quiet after is not a lesson or a sermon. It is simply the truth I have finally stopped arguing with. I am the light I've kept for others, and that knowledge is enough to change what comes next. Even if nothing ever changes at all for the world outside this tower.